everyone, this is Elena and I'm back today with a video reviewing the Chameleon pencils. I just want to mention that this review is not sponsored or product hasn't been provided. I purchased those pencils myself. So this is purely my personal review of the Chameleon pencils. So if you can see here, there are 25 pencils. They're double-ended and come in this very handy little box that you can store them or take them with you as well. You can use it as a stand. So there are 25 pencils, but there are 50 colors because they're double-ended. So they're pre-sharpened and they're numbered as well. The numbers are on the bottom of the box, the container where they're stored, and as well they're numbered so you know which pencil goes where for easy storage and easy to find. So I'm gonna test these pencils. Those are wax-based pencils. The lead is very kind of holds sharp point for a longer time than any other wax-based pencils that I've worked with before. So they're very similar in that matter, like the oil-based pencils, like the Faber-Castell polychromos. So I have down here several types of paper I'm gonna test the pencils on. First is Bristol vellum, and I'm using Hero Arts India black ink to stamp my the flowers images that I will color, and the images are from watercolor florals from Impression Obsession. So I'm stamping the flowers on each of these papers. So I'm using vellum, Bristol vellum. Then Nina 110 pound, Nina 80 pound, Mitientes, Canson Mitientes pastel paper. I'm using kind of grayish, like warm gray, or kind of more towards craft. This is the last one. And Stampin' Up! Basic gray and Nina Desert Storm cardstock. So I'm gonna start with the vellum, with the Bristol vellum. And this is another Mitientes paper, that's the darker gray that I use with the blue. So I'm using the blue shades, I'm using 2 of those. And then white, and then I'll add some black. This is soft white and the lid is a little bit softer than the other pencils. So first, and those are very easy to layer the color. So you can see here, you can barely see any color. And then as I put more layers on top, the colors get very intense. So they're very highly pigmented, and depending on the pressure you're putting on your image, you get either a darker or a lighter color. As well, you're blending the colors, just flip the pen on the other side. Both sides are the colors are coordinated, so you don't need to go back in your box and look for which color is gonna match the lighter or depending which way you wanna go. So I'm just using here flicking motions because I wanted to kind of add a little bit more texture. And I'm just adding these layers and layers of color. Then I want it to be more deep color around the center of the flower, so I'm adding some black, and then with the lightest blue I'm kind of blending that out. So I'm adding just more white where I want the lightest spots to be, and then again going with the blue, with the lightest blue, and kind of coloring that in and blending the colors. Again, adding some texture like with the darker lines. So next I'm moving on to the Canson Mitientes paper, the little kind of between craft and gray. And this is pastel paper. I really love this paper for working with pencils. You see here, you can barely see that color, but as we layer, you will see how that petal kind of pops out of the page, and I really like the effect of the pencils on dark color paper. So I'm just adding more layers of color. So you can use only 2 in the white. I like to have more colors, kind of blend them together so to get more kind of depth of the flower. So I'm just coloring there and adding the shadows and the highlights, and then going with the black to add a little bit more depth around the center of the flower. So and then I'm going with the darkest blue and then the medium one and kind of blending that out. Next, the size of the petals there where they're folded. So here's a comparison. You see how that blue pops out of the page. Next, I'm moving to the Nina White 80-pound cardstock. So I'm just laying very light layer of color and then adding some darker. Kind of repeating the same process for each of these flowers. And you can see how the results vary from one to another paper. You can test your pencils, and this is applicable for any kind of pencils. So test which paper you like the best. And honestly, I liked how they looked on every paper, but my preference is to work with pencils or on darker paper because the colors really pop, because these pencils are very high, as I said in the beginning, they're very highly pigmented, so you make that color more opaque on the dark color cardstock or paper, and it makes really pop. At the end of the video, I'll have as well, I'll make a card to kind of finish card, not just coloring one pencils and one petal, and you will see how the colors pop. So here's comparison. So I kind of like more the image how it looks on the vellum, on the Bristol vellum, than on the Nina 80-pound smooth white cardstock, because the vellum has more to it, and the pencil you can layer it more. It doesn't really slide from the smooth surface, but the kind of the texture of the paper catches more of that pigment, and more pigment gets deposited onto the paper. So I'm now using the basic gray from Stampin' Up. Actually, I think this is Smoky Shadow. I apologize. This is the lighter gray. So you see how that color again starts to kind of come out as I layer the colors. And as well, I want to apologize for a longer video than usual. It's about 17 minutes video. I hope you hang around with me till the end, so you can see the results using all the different papers, as well see the card at the end. So I'm just adding some white for the highlights. So that one is almost done. Now I'm moving to the Nina 110-pound cardstock. This one is not as smooth as the 80-pound. It has a little bit texture, but not as much texture as the Bristol vellum. So I'm just layering the color. And I think blue is my favorite color, so I keep going with the blue, as you see. So the picture in the beginning of the card that I finished a couple weeks ago, again I used the blue colors. I use pretty much the same colors as I'm using right now. But on the card towards the end of the video, I'll be using the pinks and the purples. So you see a little bit variety of color. So I'm just adding some black again around the center. Kind of blending that out with the lightest blue. So that's that one. And next, here's kind of comparison of all of them. So you see the effect of all of them. So next I'm moving to the Desert Storm from Nina, which is similar to the Stampin' Up! Craft crumb cake cardstock, not the craft one. So I'm just laying down a layer of the light blue, then some white, and then going back with the light blue, and then starting to add dimension with the darker blue, with the medium and dark blues. And then I'll be going back with the lighter to blend those colors and get some highlights and shadows. So you see how that color gets more and more intense as I layer the pencil, the colors. So So I think this one is almost done. I'll just blend everything with the lightest blue. So now we have all of those here. I tested 6, I think there are 6 types of paper. So next I'm going with a solid image. I'll stamp the image onto Nina White, classic Crest Solar White cardstock using red dye ink. And then I'll use the pencils to add some dimension to the solid images. So this is another way to use your pencils to add more depth to solid stamped images. I'm using the reds and the browns to add a little bit more depth to that one petal. I'm not going to do the whole because this video will be an hour long. So I'm just showing you a couple of techniques that you can use with your colored pencils. So because as I said before, they're highly pigmented. They work on top of solid stamped images to add more dimension. So that color is very visible. And now you can see how that on the bottom that petal is darker, and you can see that depth in comparison to the other petals which look flat. Next I'm gonna stamp image again on Nina White 80-pound cardstock using alcohol marker friendly ink. I'm using here the Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink, and this is Alta New Stamp. It's one of their new releases. And then I'm using the turquoise Chameleon pen. So I'm just infusing it for about 5 to 7 seconds, and then I'll color a couple images, and then I'll add more dimension and depth to that to those petals using the pencil. So I'm just using one pencil and just adding those first with the darkest and then with the lighter, and just blending those to add a little bit more dimension and interest to the flower. And then for the center I'll be using 2 of the pencils, the yellows and red shades, to add a little bit more dimension to the flower center. So here's the finished card I showed earlier, and here's, you can see how kind of that pops out of the page of the card. Now I'm gonna just label my samples that I made. So this is Bristol Vellum. The next is Canson Mitientes grayscale pastel paper. So here I decided to go with white gel pen because it's more visible than pencil. So I'm just writing the names of the papers that I used. So next is Nina 110-pound cardstock. This one is Stampin' Up! Smoky Shadow. I think that's the name. I haven't used Stampin' Up! In forever, so but I'll be using for the next card that's coming up in a minute. This one is Nina 80-pound cardstock. Nina Solar White Classic Crest 80-pound. And then this is Nina Desert Sand. So you can test it on any other paper. If you have hot press watercolor paper, you can use that one too for your pencils, or any other paper that you like, you can just test it. So this is Nina White. I think this was 110. I think I said 80-pound earlier, but it's 110. And this is the flower that we colored with the Chameleon pens. And then with the pencils is Nina White 80-pound. So those are the 2 kind of techniques. And here's again, I'll just line those up so you can see the differences and the effects you get using different color cardstock or different weight and texture of the white cardstock. So that's the comparison. So next let's go and make a card. I'm using, I think this is a stamp set from Stampin' Up! And I think it's called So Sweet, You're So Sweet. I'll have listed in the description the correct name of the stamp set. So I'm using the Canson Mitientes gray cardstock, and I'm stamping the image with Versamark, and then I'll emboss it in white, and then I'll be using the Chameleon pencils to color it. First I'm gonna heat set that embossing powder, and next I'm using the pink and purple pencils along with the white for the highlights to color that mixing ball. So we're just going to use two, but then I went with the darker purple to add a little bit more kind of depth to that image. So next I'm coloring the inside of the ball. And I'm going to go kind of around, blend those in. So next the spoon, I'm using the grays for the spoon and a little bit of black to add a little bit more dimension. And then I'll use the browns for the content. Apparently chocolate, it's going to be a chocolate cake. So that's all done. And next I'll just trim that out, kind of adding and blending it more. Next I'm using some black fan foam to attach that layer onto my card base. The card base is from Hero Arts, actually, the folded note cards, which are very handy. And to add a little bit more interest, I'm using the Nova White crystal drops. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and see you soon in another video. Bye!